Good morning, Ivan.
How do you do?
Listen, thanks an awful lot for doing this. You are a gentleman and a scholar and other things.
Yes.
You are, yeah, terrific.
I know who I am.
You know who you are. Okay. Okay, Ivan. How did you end up in SOHO?
I had been working for Leo Castelli for a period of 10 years, from 1959 to 1969. And it came to a turn where I decided that I should embark on my own enterprise. We lived on very good terms. We were very friendly, and kind of a family situation with son of Ben and Leo. And I had been living at that time in the I.M. Pei Towers just down the street from here,
Yes.
overlooking LaGuardia Place and West Broadway.
Right.
And I looked down on this neighborhood. And during that interval, I also walked through the neighborhood and found that it had a kind of remarkable physical, unified quality about it, a unity of style.
Right.
Cast iron buildings that were in the classical arrangement. So I decided that it would be a daring and remarkable thing to evacuate from the golden belt of the galleries up on Madison Avenue on 57th Street and attempt to operate in what's called nothing. At that time, the only designation for this name was Hell's 100 Acres.
Hell's 100 Acres.
That was the usage for the late 19th, early 20th century when there were a lot of fires here in the neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
It turned out that people thought the cast iron buildings would be fireproof, but they weren't. The fires started inside the cast iron jacketing of the building acted as a kind of a chimney.
Uh-huh.
So fires were frequent and destructive.
Uh-huh.
So it came to be called Hell's 100 Acres.
Uh-huh.
Several years later, when we were in operation here, we opened a second gallery called 100 Acres.
Ah.
Now there's a restaurant called 100 Acres.
Right. And
Nobody knows what it means.
and where was that, Ivan?
We opened that down the street on West Broadway at 465 West Broadway. We rented the ground floor, which was 7,000 square feet.
Wow.
The rent was something like $350 a month
Wow.
at that time. And when I saw the space, and we had it fixed up for an exhibition facility, I decided it was too much for me. It's too big a space, 7,000 square. So I offered half of it to Mrs. Zonneban, Liana Zonneban,
Uh-huh.
for a gallery. She said, "What will I do with 3,500 square feet?" So my gallery at that point, I think, was the largest gallery in the city, 7,000 square feet. And we put on we had 3 exhibition areas, and we showed 3 different shows a month.
Mm-hmm.
We have 5 exhibition areas here, and there's 5 shows a month.
Mm-hmm.
The only gallery of its kind that does that. We have a great installation person here, and he does it to perfection.
How long were you there?
We were there till 1969, till about 1973. We moved, and with somebody, I said, "I'm not paying." They wanted to raise the rent to $450. I said, "I'm not paying no $450. Somebody said, "I heard you're looking for another space now." So somebody said, "The building for sale over here at 383 West Broadway, 11,000 square feet."
Ah.
I said, "What will I do with 11,000 square feet?" So somebody was, I don't know who it was, maybe it was Charles Ross who occupies the top floor, or somebody, Neil Jenny maybe, who took me on a tour of the building. And it was rather dreadful. The whole neighborhood was an empty zone.
An empty
The
zone.
industrial activity had completely curtailed. It stopped here in the 1930s, and 3/4 of the buildings were evacuated. I heard about a gallery in operation in one of the upper floors called Paula Cooper Gallery, but I haven't gone there.
Yes. It was on Prince Street.
Yeah, she shared the space with, I think her husband of the time had a factory that made medallic arts.
Uh-huh.
And she shared the space with him, apparently.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't know anything about that. So mine was strictly an adventure doing this. We came down here, and the day the place was shown to me, the ceilings were coming down. All the original ceiling, which had been reconstructed, was falling off.
Sagging.
And the whole place was a totally mess. And when I walked into the back room with the person who was guiding me, somebody was in the room and said, who's that? Who's that? I said, "Me." He says, "Ivan, is that Ivan?" It was John Chamberlain.
You're kidding.
Lying on one of his sculptures with his girlfriend. And his studio was here. And I don't think that anybody knew he worked here. And there were a lot of there were individual occupancies of spaces here that the city didn't know about at all.
I see.
John left a Con Edison bill of $65,000. He'd been doing his welding here, and he didn't know it was a meter. Anyhow, he can afford that now.
Yes. Oh, yes, I know.
So we commenced operations in 1973 here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able also at that time to move across the street.
I
The
see.
cast iron building across the street where my residence is. And we conduct the gallery in the quest for artists of consequence. Our main ambition is to show very best work being produced
I see.
anywhere this time. And we made it a requirement for ourselves to interview every artist applicant without an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a strenuous task to do that. We see 25 to 30 artists a week. They used to come in with little packets of slides. Now they come with a CD or they have a website.
Yes.
But we look at everything.
Uh-huh.
And the other dealers, the dealers who don't do this, which is about 95% of the dealers don't look at anything. They send the artist applicants to me. So we see a lot of work that we should not have seen.
I see.
But once in a while somebody turns up that looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
We visit the studio, and if it looks good in real life, then we schedule an exhibition. We schedule our shows about 2 years in advance. Mm-hmm. We have no rigid contracts with our artists. We show their work as long as we feel it's progressive, and they can show with us as long as they feel comfortable with our representation.
So let me ask you, who did you show at the beginning?
That's a high pressure on my memory.
Okay.
I know we showed it was Gary Bauer,
Uh-huh.
and this from the very beginning. What's his name? I can't see. He's an art critic also. He's got a piece in this month's Art in America, criticism. But he was a good painter. Name's not coming back to me.
Peter Plagens?
No, we didn't show Plagens. Came later on. I have a book here with. We can look through some of the names.
Okay. Well, can you tell me some of the sort of memorable stories of artists that you've
The
shown?
stories about artists, like famous artists,
Yes.
it's not part of my SOHO experience.
It's not part of your SOHO experience.
No. I first saw Andy Warhol in 1961. I was the first art dealer in his studio. I saw Roy Lichtenstein's work, the first one also, in the New York art scene in 1961 also. Mm-hmm. And I saw Jim Rosenquist that time. Mm-hmm. And when I first started a little co-op gallery on 59th Street, Central Park South, with Dick Bellamy.
Uh-huh.
And I first met John Chamberlain there. He was at a group show. And when I left that gallery, I moved to Martha Jackson Gallery for a year.
Uh-huh.
And she said to me that I could bring any one artist with me.
Any one artist?
Yeah, I took John Chamberlain.
You did.
So he showed at Martha Jackson
Yes.
during the interval I was there, about a year and a half. And then I brought him with me to Castelli Gallery.
I see.
Leo was very responsive to his work. We couldn't sell anything.
Okay. So who do you sort of remember that is a colorful artist that you show?
Most colorful personality?
Yes.
Different kinds of colorations. If I could, you have to leave a message like that with me. I'll send you the names of the most vivid, flamboyant, charming, charmless, the whole spectrum of personality traits.
When you first started down here on West Broadway, what was the climate like in SOHO?
It was an abandoned neighborhood here. There was on this street, between Houston Street and Canal Street, which is the SOHO limits at this point, there were 5 commercial premises altogether. So it was an empty neighborhood. You could park your car here overnight. The streets were fairly empty. We got written up for daringly moving out of the Golden Belt uptown into this bleak, desperate, abandoned district. And so people came down out of curiosity to see the gallery. So we generated a surprising number of people visiting the gallery at the time. And within a year, 2 or 3 other galleries moved into the neighborhood. Reese Paley that was here, the Australian
Yes.
dealer,
Hutchinson. Right.
And then all the others came. By 1985, there were 330 galleries in this district. And I think our appearance here in 1969 was what incited
Yes.
the transformation of this neighborhood into a significant residential and commercial. Now it's a landmark district, as you know.
Right. So, aside from just the raw space, why? Why did you do it? Aside from the raw space.
The pioneering, a natural adventurous spirit, the pioneering instinct, the whole idea of being separated from the prevailing mode was interesting to me, and I wanted to see if it could be done. If we could show work that would be sufficiently effective to bring in an audience and to announce our independence from the prevailing ways of dealing with art. We had, during our first 3 or 4 years, remarkable attendance here. And by 1973, 74, 75, we would get 2,000 people a week coming to the gallery.
Wow.
We were fortunately also able to, we purchased the space.
You did?
11,000 square feet for $25,000. I got a loan from one of my collectors for the space. So it's quite valuable now. That's why we didn't want to move, everybody else moved out, as you know.
Yeah.
About a handful of galleries still in the district
Yes.
here. You know. We're going to stick it out as long as we can.
Okay. What sort of contributed to the decline of SOHO?
Oh, but only rents.
The rents.
Decline. Nobody could pay the rent? Yeah, it's unbelievable. A space like this would rent for $100,000 to $150,000 a month, this space. Rent $150,000 a month in this neighborhood. The galleries at that time, nobody could afford that. So I looked for another old industrial neighborhood. I liked it here because it's got physical character then. All the buildings now have been refreshed. They're beautiful streets to walk on, you know, to see the variations in the cast iron style. That was one of the inducements of my coming here. Quest for independence, right? A daring adventure. I still enjoy coming in every day here to work, to be with the artists and my own staff, wonderful people I work with. It's a gallery family. They've been with me for many, many years. And it's gratifying, of course, once you identify an artist of some consequence, you know. All of the artists we show have the highest professional standard, representing every possible tendency. We've been pigeonholed as a gallery that shows realist art. They call it photorealism. It's just a small part of what we do here. We show more abstraction than we show realism. We showed the realists because they were the best artists I'd come across during the interval I found them. 5 or 6 remarkable artists, Ralph Goings and Robert Cunningham and Robert Bechtel, Dwayne Hansen, John DeAndrea.
Did the art change because of the spaces?
Art changes because of itself. I mean, because the space was larger.
Yes.
Artists worked. In some cases, I think certain artists and certain sculptors worked maybe more expansively because they felt there would be a place for them to show work of a grand scale. That's the only changes. There are no ideological changes, no philosophical changes. They progress according to the development of the society around them and their own temperament and psychology.
Well, I think there was a certain energy in the art world in the 70s and the 80s. Do you feel like SOHO played a specific role in that energy? Was it kind of, I don't know, the grounds of all the creativity that was taking place at that time?
I think that it's possible that there was a liberating atmosphere here, and that artists, because the galleries proliferated also, more galleries came into the scene. So the whole art community expanded dramatically. When I came into the art world in 1954, I was art critic for the Village Voice. You'd go to an opening on a Tuesday evening. It was always a Tuesday evening for the openings. It would be probably, the entire art world was 125 people, including collectors and dealers and the artists. And the artists were broken up into 4 or 5 factions. There were the artists believed that you had to work from the figure. There were the Trotskyists, and there were the Marxists, there were all kinds of cliques. Each one had his own philosophy. They had a little group of people, and they clumped together at all the openings.
And what were the openings? What were the openings like?
Morbid.
Morbid? How do you mean?
The artist would be there, and he'd be hiding from the public, or protected by alcohol.
Protected by alcohol. Listen, I recently spoke to Alan Suicide, Alan Vega.
Yeah, we showed him.
I know. He was describing his show and what your reaction was. He had all these electric wires on the floor, and they were
You know what his work looks like, don't you?
Yes, of course.
Agglomerations of equipment. And
Yes. But he said that you were complaining about the fact that you told him that it was too dangerous.
Somebody tripped over one of the wires. So we said, I asked him if he was bonded. He said he had no insurance coverage.
I see.
We showed him again after that.
I know you did. Yeah.
It should be known that as I say, we're excluded from coverage by the art press. We don't get it. We haven't had a review in the Times in 8 or 9 years. It's really startling, shocking. I don't think the critics, they can deal with the idea of walking into a gallery that has 5 different exhibitions. Too much to encompass. We try to get across the point. Just review one of them, or damn us completely, but say something in God's name. We've been a presence here for a long time.
When you think back on kind of those very early days, do they feel very much so like the glory days? Are they very fond? Is it fond memories that come up?
No, it's been a glorious occasion for me all the way through. There was a pitch of excitement that occurred at the advent of the pop movement. Of course, abstract expressionism dominated the entire working process of artists at that time. By probably 50 to 60%, 75% of the artists we saw were involved in abstract expressionist gesturing. And the emergence of people like Warhol, Lichtenstein, and others, it shifted the mental climate. The thought about America's place in the world changed somewhat, along with the end of World War II, became a certain absolute prominence in world affairs. You felt that America was the pivotal place for things to happen. And that wasn't true during the abstract expressionist period. There was still a residue of anxiety about the survival of the country at its best at that time. And that changed in the 60s. And I think the art community played a role in that, and then it grew very rapidly after that, as you know.
Like Lichtenstein and
Warhol, Lichtenstein, and
Oldenburg.
Oldenburg, yeah, I see Oldenburg. We join each other for dinner every so often.
Ivan, of course, was an Upper East Side character at the Leo Castelli Gallery. He was the director of the gallery, and cigar-smoking, well-founded, affable master of ceremonies of the avant-garde. He smoked cigars to extreme so that it was a little polluted to be around him. But he was a very funny fellow and very brazen, and rather a man of many parts, cultured and individualistic. When he moved down here, he became like the capital center of SOHO art scene. Before 420 West Broadway across the street became the rising paramount star. So SOHO was, in a sense, represented by this loudmouth, entrepreneurial, and sweet-talking character who formed a circle of his own and who established himself as the senior resident in the art trade. We liked him.
Ivan was the nicest because he never advertised in any art magazine, but when we asked him to advertise in our magazine, Art Right, he agreed. So that was always very special. And you know, Ivan was a very unusual guy. He had a big clientele. He was anti-snobby, even though he'd started his career at Castelli and discovered a lot of the pop artists. He had 3 galleries, or maybe 4 spaces in his gallery, 3 big rooms in his gallery, or maybe 4, and he'd have a different show in each one. And but he advertised with us because he wanted to show his support.